Hey there, it's Ginger Bell. Happy Friday. Today is Friday, March 27th, and I am on day 14 of my social distancing and shelter in place. And I've been using Zoom like crazy, which I've been using Zoom for many, many years, but I'm bored with background. So I decided to do a virtual background today. So we are doing a little hot air ballooning today. So I hope you have a good weekend. Just so you know, today in history, I'm kind of time stamping these things. Today we are at, in the US, over 85,000 cases confirmed of COVID-19, and we have almost 1,300 deaths. So I think the good news is that the shelter in place and flatten the curve seems to be working. For those of you who obviously know somebody who's affected by this, our hearts go out to you, but let's continue to work on this. We're in it together throughout the entire world. And I want to thank everyone who's been jumping on the videos with me to be able to share information, to help you guys to be able to flatten the curve, not the spirit. And enjoys today's video with a very good friend of mine, Bill Hart. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday. Well, hi there, it's Ginger Bell, and I'm here with another episode of Flatten the Curve, Not the Spirit. And today I'm super excited because I have someone who I've had a huge crush on for a very long time and have followed him for a very long time. And I think he's like super cool because Bill, one of the things you do is just really make things to where they are very real and understandable, but also very fun. So welcome to my friend, Bill Hart.
So my honor, so my pleasure. I love that you're doing this, Ginger. Love that you're doing this. And there's no place I'd rather be right now. So I'm thrilled that we're doing this.
Yes, I absolutely agree. So, obviously we're in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic, house arrest, staying secure, all these kind of things. And a lot of people are adapting to working from home and having that virtual, office space. And a lot of them are doing it with kids around. And, for me, my mother-in-law, my 83-year-old mother-in-law, we brought in. And so, funny things like managing how much time she's on the news.
Right.
So,
screen time for grandma.
Exactly. Yeah. So, starting out with, the whole idea in starting this is, how do you stay positive? What are the things? So what are the things that you're doing to make sure that you're in the right mindset? And I know you come from a great, place of strength because that's what you teach. That's what you do. But still, sometimes it's hard as the coach, as the teacher, as the leader, to make sure that you're managing yourself too. So what are you doing right now to make sure that you're doing that?
Yeah, great question and great point. It's funny, I told Tony, my wife, last night, I don't know, around 5 o'clock or so. We're spending a lot of time together these days, by the way. Right?
It's one of those things I told my husband this morning. It's like, remember that game where you're like, you go through, you can pick 3 people that are going to be on an island with you?
We're living it.
And it's like, you hope you pick the right 3.
Right? We're living it. It is so true. Oh my goodness. That's something that occurs to me, and I don't think anybody's talking about is, oh my goodness, what if you're isolated with the wrong person right now, right?
Yeah.
So I have to show you this. This is the coolest thing. So this is the note that is by the coffee maker this morning, right?
Aww.
I would not want to be quarantined with anyone but you. So that's from my wife this morning, and it's like, my life is complete. I'm good, right? But here's what I know. I don't want to, like Renee would call this out because I just went through Amplify with him, Renee Rodriguez. He'd say, Bill, yeah, everything sounds really good, but tell them about the before it was great, right? So you all just need to hear real quick, like, I was married before, she was married before. It was a horrific time for us to get together. But as we constantly remind ourselves 30 years later, you know what? This is what we worked for. This is what we worked so hard for. And that's why we appreciate it so much. So that's where that's the spirit of that note, right? Is like, we actually enjoy spending time with each other. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
So, but I mentioned to her, I had let out kind of a deep sigh in the kitchen. I was making a cup of coffee. She said, you good? And I said, yeah, I guess I just realized that, all my coaching sessions yesterday, I think we're putting bricks on my shoulders and,
exactly.
You want to show up right and you want to help people, but it's like being a therapist. I'm sure, years ago, 40 years ago, I used to tend bar in Beverly Hills.
Uh-huh.
And there was a guy, when I opened the bar at 10 o'clock, it was a restaurant, the Magic Pan. There was a guy that would walk in who was a psychiatrist, and he wore a three-piece suit, right? This is the early 80s, right?
Right.
Three-piece white suit. And he would come in and have 3 extra dry vodka martinis straight up. And then he would go to work and listen to patients. Right? Like he got hammered and then went and listened to the Beverly Hills Housewives, right? Before it was a thing. Anyway, but that's the reality. I think that if you show up in this space right now, as you do, Ginger, and as I do, it's just not realistic to think that you're not going to take on some of that weight, but
Right.
the other side of it is I recognize it. And so let me give you some very tactical things that I do. One of the things, again, Rene Rodriguez, I'm just so grateful for him, but one of the things he taught me that the Navy SEALs use is box breathing. Have you guys talked about that?
What is it? Box breathing?
Box breathing. Yeah. So it's you can Google it, but it's essentially, I take a deep breath, I hold it for 4 seconds, I release it, I hold it for 4 seconds. And so it's this sort of box that you visualize, and it just allows you to right. And so I don't know, I'm probably doing that a half a dozen times a day. And I now do it at night when I'm falling asleep, because it actually helps me to just like zonk out. So it's a simple thing. Anybody can learn to do it. If you'd like, we can put a link down below. It's a super, super simple thing to do with a graphic to remind you, and you'll always have that tool. But that's one thing.
Write it down.
I live in Southern California, so I'm blessed by, great temperate weather most of the time. And so it's easy to go outside for a walk. And so far we're still allowed to go outside and exercise. And I just walk fast. I've never been a runner. I've never understood running. It's like, for me, I feel like I'm Bigfoot just pounding the sidewalk, and there's nothing elegant about it. So I walk fast, and I normally listen to podcasts, and I'm just going to make this suggestion as a guy who has a podcast. Maybe it's a good season to listen to music that feeds your heart.
Right.
And so as a guy who's 65, I go back to 70s music, right? And so for you, it might be 80s or 90s, but whatever the music is that takes you back, because it does,
right,
through the good times, right? Whatever that period is. Yesterday, out on that walk, gorgeous day, white fluffy clouds, blue sky, 61 degrees. It was spectacular. I'm like, I am so grateful to be alive. And it was just 30 minutes, right? That's all that was. So yeah, for me, it's the things that we've coached all along, Ginger. It's just that they're more important now than ever. Control what you can control.
Yes. And that's your reaction too. Everything as far as managing all of that is so, so important. So let's talk about communication for leaders, because, we've got, especially in the mortgage industry, yes, things are busy, but also out of control. I mean, we were just talking about, you're in the middle of refinancing and maybe possibly signing today, but really,
we'll see if the notary shows up in a NASA suit. Who knows? Right? Yeah.
But, it's like things are changing daily. And so, for leaders communicating with their team, and being able to do that, what are you advising your coaching clients as far as, the message, how often, how it should be delivered? We talk about video, and I think having that face to be able to see that is important. So what are you telling your coaching clients?
So I'm going to answer that question directly, but I want to help you understand the reason that I'm hesitating on that is, when you ask me, what are you telling your coaching clients? To me, that implies that I know, and I'm going to tell them what they should do.
Right.
I've never really approached coaching that way. Brian Tracy used to call himself the great synthesizer. And what he meant was, like, I'm a student of success, right? So that's the way that I approach coaching. I don't have all the answers. I don't have anything figured out. I got a few things, half a dozen. But the rest is like what I learned from my clients. And so let me give you a very tangible example of this. And with permission from clients, I'll tell these stories. So this is something that I don't have permission to tell. So I can't tell you who it is or where it is, but I'll tell you that it's a female regional leader in the mortgage space who I've always known to be very wise and strong. But all of a sudden, Ginger, she's got like a new gear. And what I mean is she is over communicating. She is erring on the side of over communicating. And she is over communicating on communicating with her entire region. So instead of just like talking to her branch or area managers and branch managers and letting them distribute it, no, not to open up any political doors here, but if you just think about what's happening nationally.
Yes.
We've got the president on TV every day. We've got governors, some of whom are very visible and vocal, going completely off the reservation. And while I'm all about states' rights, it's like, okay, so executive, right? Governor, mayor. And if there isn't some continuity in that, then it just creates chaos, right? It's like, well, hang on, I heard this. And so what she's done is she's just saying, you know what, I don't have the luxury to leave that up to my branch managers, some of whom will communicate it beautifully and some of whom will do it poorly. So I must step into this moment and communicate with everyone every day. And so that would be my strongest advice. And while I can give you a lot of individual, maybe you want to go there, but tactical things to do, I just think philosophically, that's a great mindset.
Right. And with that comes the strength of being a leader. So you're not being afraid to lead. And I think that's what people are looking for right now. We're looking for leaders. And
oh my goodness, yeah.
This is the time to lead and to, be very bold as far as leading and, to be compassionate and to listen. This is the time that I think it's important to really tune into your listening skills as well as just your, communication skills.
So important.
Having that door open.
Right. So, okay. So I'm creating a talk right now that apparently I'll be delivering virtually called when the system breaks down, leaders step up.
I like it.
But I'm seeing it day in, day out. You and I are seeing it. We see it on television. We see it in the industry. And it's just such a beautiful opportunity. And, the vast majority of my time is in the mortgage industry. That's where I spend most of my time and have for the last 17 years. And, Ginger, there's a sad thing that I'm seeing, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, but I've always said we have people who are way over their skis in this business in leadership roles. And all of a sudden we're seeing empty suits. Yeah. Where there's really not much there. I'm not saying they're not good human beings. They're not evil. They're not nefarious characters, but they're not leaders. And so they don't know how to show up in this moment. And I kind of liken it to, in my book, White Collar Warrior, I interviewed Army Rangers and Navy SEALs and a Top Gun instructor. And, and I know you've spent time with those people, and they're just wired differently, right? In terms of their mindset and their training. And so if there's a public shooting, if there's a earthquake, if there's an event, right? An emergency, they know how to show up. And what they don't do is what the sheep do, right? What the sheep do is they all kind of run away screaming, and it's this chaotic, sort of herd mentality. And you see that leadership now. And the cool thing about that is if you are that leader, I'm going to tell you, man, trust your gut right now. Trust your instincts and step into that vacuum because we need it.
Right.
And conversely, if you are that person who feels like, I'm out over my skis a little bit, step out. Like, I'm not saying resign, but I'm saying, like, let somebody else. There's a scene in Band of Brothers. I don't know if you ever saw that, but there's a scene in Band of Brothers where there's a private, and I'll call him a lieutenant. And in that moment, this is in World War II, it's very clear that the private is absolutely the person that should be leading, right, and not that lieutenant. Somebody's going to die. And I'm saying, like, step out of the way, do what you do it well, but don't confuse people right now. Renee said something, Renee Rodriguez, I don't know, is this now the third or fourth time that I've It's because he's such a great example of this, right? Between his amazing voice, does he not have?
Honey, he could read the phone book to
right?
me. Happy.
He has the most calming, beautiful voice I think I've ever heard. I could fall asleep with him giving me positive affirmations. I'd pay
Yeah.
money for that.
Yeah.
Um,
We should get him to do that.
we should get him to do that. Good point. What the heck was I just going to say about that? I don't remember. Do you recall?
So, well, you were talking about the mindset and stepping away. So if you don't have the ability to lead, to let the next person
Yeah.
be able to come in and lead. We'll come back
That's
to
a
that.
really good point I made. I don't know what I was going to say about Renee, but there you go. Yeah, I think this is our time, right? To step up and step in and make something happen. And Ginger, I will say this, like I believe that there's two important conversations right now. I think number one is control what you can control, whether you're a leader or you're an ops person or you're a sales professional and you're trying to figure out how to connect with clients and prospects in a new way. I think that's one conversation. I think the other conversation is like, how do I manage this at home? And if I may, for just a quick second, there's a couple of things that really hit me. This morning, I was looking for something in the garage yesterday, and we have a 3-car garage, and a third of it is devoted to Christmas. And you know, if I wouldn't walk out there right now with a video camera and show you how proud I am of its organization. It wouldn't feel good. Right. And Tony said something to me yesterday, and I thought, you know what? Now's the time. Like this weekend, I know I'm not going to be out
doing anything. Yeah.
Right. So I'm making a list of projects right now. And if you're watching this, I'm going to encourage you. There's something, whether it's, you know, I need to set up my planner, right? Or I need to clean my garage, or deferred maintenance projects. Like what I know is when we're out of control, when our routine gets rocked, we wobble a little bit internally. And the thing that we crave is order. And so sometimes that can go to the dysfunctional side. Like I have cousins right now who they don't have to work. They're staying at home. They're watching the news all the time.
Right.
And they're hoarding. Like she is telling my wife, literally, I have set my alarm for 3 a.m. to wake up to order things online so that they can be delivered. But they're hoarding. I mean, so that's a, if we recognize it for what it is, like, okay, that's an unhealthy reaction to what's going on. A healthy reaction is make a list of projects, do something like Ginger Bell has done here, figure out a way to reach out and help somebody, whether it's, if you're younger and you can go pick something up and help out some elderly neighbors, right? Do that. My neighbors the other night here on Cherry Grove, it's unbelievable. I think we live in Mayberry. Everybody's been here forever, right? So we don't move. We're like realtors' nightmares. We just stay. But we were all texting the other night, and somebody said, hey, I have whatever she had. I don't know what it was. A lot of flour. If anybody needs flour, let me know, and I'll trade you for something you've got. And so she walked across the street, left it on the porch, right? The other person walked it. And I'm like, well, I don't think I have any food, but I'm in hotels and do events all the time, and I have tons of champagne that people give me. I don't drink champagne. So I gave away 7 bottles of champagne, right? So,
awesome.
Find a way to connect and give back and help somebody else, because Ginger, what you're doing here, I think is illustrative of what we need to be doing as a society anyway. And here's my hope, friend. My hope is we actually come out of this better off. Tim Brahim recorded a great video yesterday. I don't know if you saw it or not, but kind of speaking into that, right? Like maybe we come out of this a little bit more tolerant and a little less partisan, and maybe we care about people a little bit more, and maybe something good comes out of all of this craziness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, having that hope and having that focus and staying in control. I did a horse trek one time. My son's an Eagle Scout, and they have this horse trek in Oregon that they have like 50 horses they take from one camp that's at, you know, sea level, and they take it up to Mount Hood.
Wow.
And the horses are there in the morning and throughout the summer, and the boys ride them. And then in the fall, then they take the horses from up at Mount Hood and they take them down to Butte Creek. So it's at, you know, ground level, so they're not up in the mountains. And so my son had wanted to do this. He had to be 13 to do it. And so as soon as he was 13, he put his name in the lottery and he got, you know, selected. And so he asked me to do it with him. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I grew up in Colorado riding horses. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so I said, you know, go for it. I didn't go to the meeting. My husband took my son to the meeting, and then he came back and gave me the dates. And it's like 9 days. And I'm like, you got to have that wrong. I mean, it can't be 9 days. I mean, we're just going from Mount Hood down to Silverton. You know,
Right.
it's not that far. And I've run the Hood to Coast before, and that's like 190 miles. And it's like, we do that in 24 hours. So I'm thinking 9 days. I mean, that's a really long time. So anyway, so we did it. And yes, I was on the back of a horse for 9 days. And my son and I still talk about what a great experience it was in terms of bonding. But it was very hard during that time. But, you know, I learned a lot of lessons through that as far as, you know, managing fear, because we had 50 horses, and oftentimes we honestly were on the very narrow path.
Wow.
We did it along part of it was the Oregon Crest Trail that we were on. And so here you have, you know, 50 horses that have been ridden by a bunch of boys for all summer long, and they're not very happy. So, I mean, you know, you say managing that and managing a horse and getting that. And it was times I was just terrified. But the person, Scott DiPiola, who's absolutely, I mean, he's like the Italian cowboy. I have to send a picture to you. It's like the
I'd love to see it.
handlebar mustache and the big old hat and everything.
Nice.
One of the things that he told me, and really he said, you know, in order to keep a horse focused and not, you know, paying attention to, you know, something coming across or down or anything, is you give it a job to do. And so when you give a horse a job to do, then it's focused on that job. And that's what we need to do. So you're talking about the project as far as, and I'm, you know, the same thing. It's like, you know, all the things that I've talked about, you know, it's like, gosh, I wish I had time to do that. I have my team redoing our website right now. You know, I did a call on Monday, and I said, listen, I want you to know, you know, as long as my contracts continue, you all have jobs, and we're going to double down.
Nice.
And so, you know, let's redo the website. Let's develop more content. I have, you know, some other people I work with on content. It's like, we're doubling down. You have the time. Let's do this. And keeping people busy. So
Cool.
Those are things to do. So find those projects, you know,
Absolutely.
clean out the cupboard, learn a new language. You know, it's like, I have a house full of 6 kids from Latin America at a house in Atlanta who were brought in from my son's professional esports team. And they can't play right now because they're supposed to play live. That's why they brought them in for the year. And now they're going to online. But they're all Spanish speaking. And so I'm learning Spanish.
Yes, well, you should. Well done. So you're going to come out of this better off. How cool is that?
And we will come through this. And I think that's probably one of the most important messages, to hold that in your heart. We will come through this. And it may be longer than the 14 days. We don't really know. But, you know, to look at the other side and to say, okay, at the end of this, what have I built? I had this opportunity. What have I built? What have I accomplished?
It's really good.
And, you know, did I make it valuable? So, you know, yes, clean out that garage.
Right? Oh, I'm on it. I'm on it for sure.
Write that book, you know. Like, I mean, you think about it, I know you got another book in you.
I do indeed. It's already started. So here's the funny thing about that. The second book, the title is Closing the Gaps. So in big letters, it'll say Closing the Gaps.
Nice.
And the subtitle is Between Intention and Execution.
I love it.
And thank you. And to the point I made earlier, these are the lessons that I've learned from the most effective people that I've coached. This is never about, here are Bill Hart's rules for closing gaps. That's not where I come from. It's like, man, I watch Josh Metal. I watch how he executes. I watch Todd Bookspan. I watch how he executes. How do people make things happen? And there's some very simple rules around that, right? And so one of the things that I would say to people right now is, you know, it's funny, I offered some free coaching, and I might do it again next week because I've got capacity, right? Like you, I've got more time.
Yep.
And I just know that there are people that are hurting and have questions and need some help. And, you know, I can't do it indefinitely, but I can do it for now.
Right.
And I just hung up with a woman who was feeling a little overwhelmed. And this woman has a master's degree in finance, like crazy smart, right? Knows what she's doing.
Right.
But she is overwhelmed by what David Allen in his book, Getting Things Done, calls an amorphous blob of undoability. Mm-hmm. Think about that term. Yeah. An amorphous, shapeless blob of undoability versus I have a sense of focus because I have a planner where this is all laid out. And I'm so old school oriented when it comes to this. Like, use Outlook, right? Use your app, but yeah, have a physical planner. My two favorites are this one, which is the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. It's a quarterly. What's cool about this is a bound like a book,
Right.
because he's a publisher, right? So it's an actual book. I just have purchased a leather cover that it fits into.
Right.
But that's one. And what I love about it is he gets this idea of, I need to be getting 3 key things done every day. I can have 27 things on a task list, God forbid, but there are 3 things today that I'm going to knock out,
Right.
and I'm going to get them done by noon, which brings us then to Todd Bookspan's company, which is Win by Noon. And if you're in the mortgage business, if you're a loan originator or a realtor, go to winbynoon.com. It is a brilliant planner. It's a spiral bound notebook. There will be an app, but for now, just go old school. And it does the same thing, Ginger. It focuses you in those 2 specific lanes, mortgage or real estate. What are the specific things that I need to be doing each and every day?
Right.
And I think now more than ever, like that was a good idea 2 weeks ago. Now it's like, you have to do this. Order that today.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And I haven't had Todd on yet. So.
Oh, he'll be a great guest on this because he lives and breathes this.
Yeah. Well, and even if it is, I mean, I love apps and things like that. And I'm old school like you too. I have the old Franklin copy.
Nice. Yeah.
So, but there's a process. I was actually, I was having lunch with Brian Tracy one day, and it's funny, I need to reach out to him.
Nice.
I'm not sure where he's at right now, but
yeah.
He was telling me, because I asked him, I said, and he's an incredible writer. I don't even know how many books that he's written.
Oh my goodness. Prolific. Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of writing a couple books with him.
Cool.
But he told me, he said that he still hand writes out his books.
Wow.
And he said there is the process that happens. It's the connection between what happens between the brain and the physical activity of writing it. Actually puts it into motion to where it's actually something that is more retained in the brain.
I've heard that. Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah, I think that's real. And now is a great time to just commit to this process. And the beauty of these 2 examples, the Full Focus Planner and the Win by Noon Planner, is they're 90-day tools. They're like, I swap this out every 90 days, right? My other one's over there in the corner. Same with Win by Noon. So you don't have to commit to a year of that. I mean, if I were coaching you, not you, but you viewer, I would say, try this for 90 days and see if it doesn't have an impact on you, because now is a great time, Ginger. Just reading an article earlier, and the author said, now is a time for patience, discipline, and resiliency.
Mm-hmm. I love
Patience, discipline, the planner, and resiliency. Right. A lot of people aren't very resilient. They're like, okay, this is not my world. This is not what I signed on for. Well, what are you going to do with that?
Right.
We've got to learn.
None of us signed on for this.
Right? Totally.
And trust me, if that was the line that we were standing, I would have gotten out of that line.
Isn't that the truth?
I would have gone, Bill, come over here. Not
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But you know what? Life has this funny way of putting us into circumstances, and it has put all of us into this circumstance. And so it's a matter of, what's the lesson to be learned? What lessons can you teach? And, how can we support each other? And so, that's where we're all at. And so I appreciate you coming on this video and sharing.
Oh, my pleasure.
Sharing your wisdom and your humor, and it's always great to see your smiling face, and to be able to just, give some people, I think, just a sense of, what to do with it, some calmness, and that we're all in it together. So thank you so much for that, friend.
You bet, Ginger. My honor, my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. Love what you're doing. Good luck with your mother-in-law, right?
Thank you. Yes.
I love the way you're showing up. It's, I've been there in this very office. We moved my elderly mother-in-law in years ago, and she spent the last few months of her life here and passed away in this room. And it was about as beautiful as it could have been. So So good for you for stepping up. We don't do that well in our culture. So good on you.
Well, thank you very much. And I wish you were closer. I would take a bottle of champagne.
There's more to be had for sure. I'll look forward to sharing a glass of something at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be socially distanced.
Very good. Well, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Likewise. See you, Ginger.